Brianna.
There we go.
Who's here tonight, by the way?
I don't know.
Is
Who are we missing other than Richard? Anybody?
Brendan.
Brendan? What do we want to appoint Brendan to?
is Brendan coming?
We didn't get it.
Yes.
Yeah, I bet he is.
Okay. So Richard is not coming. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he's out.
Yeah.
Frank, you can open the meeting.
Okay. So, good evening. This is the conservation meeting of Monday, October 18th. For our procedures, on June 16, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. So we need to get an acceptance of the agenda with a couple of additions. When we're all done, I wanted to just update you on where a couple of trail improvements and whatnot have been done. Jen Foley, did you want to speak about the Driftway Park piece, or do you want to chat about it some more before we bring that up?
Yeah, we can check it. We can chat about it.
That'd be great. If we have time, if Penny's not too anxious to get off the meeting, we'll give it a shot.
I'm very content. I ate my dinner. I had
Okay.
my water. I had my chocolate, so I'm all set.
Anything else to be added to the agenda?
No.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda with Frank and Jen doing some chit chatting later.
here we go. Okay, all in favor? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
That was Doug. So all in favor, we have Jen.
Yep.
Andy
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay, 8 Newell Street with Jeff DeLisi and John Zimmer. Do we have those guys on?
Hey Frank, how are you?
Good evening, Jeff.
I believe, I just want to make sure that John is here, and I know also Chris Wynn, who's my client, probably needs to be promoted if he's not already.
Okay, do we have those?
I don't
People
see
check.
John on the call yet. And I do see Chris.
Okay, well, I can begin without John. But
The
if
only
you
thing
could-
we'd like to do, Jeff, if we could, is kind of bring this as new news, new information. I think the commission's pretty familiar with the site, so we have a fair number of things to cover tonight. So if we could not do a lot of rehashing, would be great.
Yeah, I'll just kind of synopsize without really getting into any crazy detail, Frank, if that's okay.
Until Penny tells you you're done. Okay.
Yeah, 5 minutes, Jeff.
Right, Penny, thanks. So I'm here with Chris Wynn, who's my client, who you guys know. John Zimmer hopefully will be joining us in a few minutes. Our last substantive hearing on this was May 17th. Since the last meeting, Mr. Wynn submitted a bit of an analysis, kind of comparing this project to some other projects he felt was similar in and outside of Hummerock. In addition, we hired Pat Brennan, who I believe the commission's familiar with, to analyze the proposal for purposes of determining whether a pool is a structure by FEMA standards such that it needs to be elevated, and whether the proposal would have any adverse impacts on coastal storm flowage. Pat addressed that. In addition, I submitted a memorandum addressing some of the legal standards that are at play. Essentially, the notice of intent, what we're seeking to do is replace a existing semi in-ground pool that was installed at the best of our understanding at sometime prior to the mid 1980s to replace it with an in-ground pool. The hearing was initially opened in 2020 with a different design than what you see in front of you there. The commission at that time encouraged John Zimmer to be retained to address the performance standards. When he assessed the project, he realized that the winds, he encouraged the winds to consider scaling back the design, which they did, and to offer mitigation, also which they did. My understanding is that at different times, various commission members have viewed the site, which I think is eminently helpful in this circumstance because there's a lot going on out there. The site's significantly altered. It's apparent that many activities have occurred on the site over the course of many decades that have harmed the resource area, effectively rendering it not able to function as a resource area should. Significantly, there's a deteriorating concrete wall hundreds of feet long along the coastal bank that was installed that deflects natural flow and prevents water beach nourishment, etc. Also, the coastal dune is heavily scoured. There's very scant vegetation or slope to this so-called dune, and structures were erected within the buffer strip. All of this occurred prior to my client's purchase of the property. So Mr. Zimmer proposed significant coastal dune enhancement, which removes the concrete wall, repurposes the existing sandy material in the area where we propose the pool to be repurposed to rebuild the dune, to plant over 2,000 plugs of seagrass and 60 shrubs, and to replace the semi-in-ground pool that deflects water with an in-ground pool that does not deflect or impede the natural flow of water. In this particular case, the legal standard under your regulation, if you were to grant this, would be to determine whether this would have an adverse impact or represent a significant ecological improvement versus the existing conditions. As I indicated, Mr. Zimmer, Mr. Brennan addressed the performance standards. Both concluded that we were not only compliant with the performance standards, but that the situation was vastly improved compared to the existing conditions. Mr. Wynn's analysis identified similar approved projects involving pools both in Hummerock and Peggotty Beach. And the fact that those were approved appears to recognize that each project viewed on its own merits, and that all considerations of adverse impact and ecological harm are taken into consideration. Our mitigation is tied, our proposed mitigation is directly tied to the replacement of the pool, since we're using those materials for the dune enhancement aspect of the project. We believe that this is a win-win all the way around. It's volumes better than where we are today, and it's the type of project that should be encouraged in the town. And that's pretty much what I have. I think that you might want to give Chris an opportunity, my client Chris, to just kind of summarize quickly what he has submitted to the board, if that's what you want, Frank.
As long as it's, I mean, if it already covers what you've just said, which is quite a bit, obviously, as the owner of the property, Mr. Wynn has a right to speak to that, but I would like to just not have additional or repeat what's already been said, but I'm happy to have Mr. Wynn address the commission.
Frank, you've had an opportunity to, well, all of you have had an opportunity. I just want to make sure you've all seen Mr. Wynn's submittal. And, you know, I'm not interested in wasting anybody's time, but if you have any questions about it, or if you haven't seen it, please speak up. And I'm sure in a 3-minute period, you could probably review the whole thing.
That's fine. Again, he's an applicant and he's a resident and he has the right to address the commission. I'm just asking that we don't repeat a lot, that's all.
Yep. Chris, anything new to add or expound upon that I haven't covered?
Well, yeah, thank you, folks. I appreciate everyone's time. And, of course, we've had several meetings, so I appreciate everybody's time across that duration as well. Just in summary, the letter was intended to just kind of recap where we started and where we ended up, or, where we ended up from the last meeting. And, when we first purchased the property, we did consult with the commission, and the initial guidance was to my own ignorance of the process was to submit a drawing. So we took from EET, who's not with us here on the call, the Bob Crawford had the original plan. And as you may recall, we did just put a rectangle. Like, here's a rectangular pool, not understanding that was going as a starting point from all of that. I think the key thing to note is that there are several pools in Hummerock, and there was also a project that was approved this past spring that is on Peggotty Beach that has substantially the same characteristics of coastal flowage, barrier beach, proximity to vegetated wetlands and other components there, as well as some existing projects that have been rehabbed over the years in Hummerock. So that was really the summary of the analysis. But the key point in all of this is, we do understand and appreciate, obviously the role of the commission and why specific attention and thought has gone into this. But essentially we're offering to take a situation in a property that was, that's had considerable issues and try to fix those, not only in meeting the standards of the environment, but also to be friendly to neighbors and others. So, there's, as mentioned, there are other outbuildings and things that were here. And, there's other locations that this pool could have been placed. But the most important thing was to make sure, that it is not only limiting the amount of places that get further disturbed, but also to make sure that it's not preventing other people from having views, noise, et cetera. So it's, the setup and the way this was structured, they built all the decks around it. It was nestled in the middle of it. And a few of you have seen the site, but I do kind of want to reiterate the point there that it's hard to visualize from a piece of paper. And seeing the site, it's, there's an entire side yard here where the pool is, that's nothing but invasive weeds and no performing vegetation whatsoever. And the goal here is to fix all of that, as part of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. I want to go to members, but before I do that, Amy, you've mentioned this pool at Peggotty Beach. Is that in the same resource area? I just don't remember a pool at Peggotty.
No,
It's up on the cliff.
So, all right, I just want to be clear
different.
that that's not in the same,
No.
because we do want to maintain consistency.
So the one on 58 Crescent Avenue is up on the cliff, but I think the one that Chris identified was the one that's right on the beach itself, like kind of behind where the public portion of the beach is. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Chris.
Yeah, that's my belief as well.
56 Peggotty Beach Road, that one was.
Okay, I'm going to look that up while
Yeah, I mean, on the notice of intent and the meeting and it was immediately before, in one of the spring meetings, I don't have the date in front of me. It was the item that was immediately preceding ours. And it was defined in the notice of intent as, a pool in a Barrier Beach, subject to coastal flowage and all of the other conditions that we've been discussing with respect to ours.
Okay, thank you. So
Thank you.
Amy, do you want to speak to that, or do you want to go to members? We've done both.
Yeah, I don't recall what he's recalling, what Chris is saying. Yeah, I don't recall a project in coastal Dune on Barrier Beach that's a pool. And but each review is a brand new review anyhow. So, but yeah, I think that address you're going to find is actually in the coastal bank.
Okay, well, I'm gonna look it up while we're working through our way through members. So, Penny,
Nope, heard it.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Jen,
Yep, I'm all set.
okay. Andy,
I don't have questions, but I did find that the 56 Peggotty, I think one big difference is that pool is not in the 50. Just pointing that out, but
Yeah.
otherwise no questions.
okay. Is Brendan here yet?
I am.
Okay.
Hey, Brendan.
Brendan, do you have any questions or comments regarding 8 Newell Street?
No, I currently don't.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
Did you say 58 or 56, Andy? Would you
Six.
I'm
56
looking at
Peggotty?
56 Peggotty.
I don't, oh, okay, it's the same, it's almost the same lot. It's that corner lot just on the edge up on the
Yeah, it's up on.
bank there. Yeah, okay. I do remember. I didn't remember a pool in that project, but they could be right. I appreciate the applicant's desire to point out, and the consistency is important to me as well. I was going to look at all those other projects that he mentioned in there, and I'll say that I didn't get that done before tonight, but I don't have any more questions for them. So I don't see, and I don't want to belabor it at all. So I can do that this week after the meeting.
Okay,
I'm speaking about the comparable projects. I just wanted to look at those.
And not.
Oh, I see my confusion. 58 Crescent Ave, that's different.
Yeah, no, and I can tell you 56 Peggotty Beach is up, where you pull off to look down at Peggotty. And
Yeah,
you keep
yeah, I
driving
run,
up and it's down the,
Hi.
it's not a coastal dune. It's up over the revetment. And actually
correct.
it's being looked at by FEMA right now. So there's a dispute on what zone it's in.
Okay. Yeah, I run by that well, not every day, but yeah. Thanks.
Go to Brendan.
Penny?
No, I was saying Brendan's here now.
Yep, he already commented, so,
I was sleeping.
all right. Does any other members have anything they want to add?
Can I make a motion?
Well, just before you do, so I've been out to the site. I've heard Mr. DeLisi, I've heard Mr. Nguyen, Mr. Zimmer, and I appreciate all the work they've tried to do to make this possible, and people trying to improve their property. And we always seem to get into a bind between, or in my mind, sort of a compromise with different projects. We have the improvements that they're willing to offer on a site that's pretty degraded. And, but in turn, they're looking for some relief to put something there. And we've had this discussion back and forth. We tried to get CZM to go to the site. It didn't work out, but I know we've discussed this a number of times with them. And I think maybe Amy, CZM is sort of an advisory group, but it's more of a DEP regulation. And maybe you just want to cite that if you can.
Frank, did you just say it was a
Or-
DEP regulation?
Well, a DEP ruling or regulation on what can be in and out of a zone, if I'm correct. And I'm just
Well,
hoping.
I don't have the regulations in front of me, Frank, but we're talking about the standard for barrier beach in coastal dune. And just it's strict that no vertical walls are allowed, because you're not gonna let, a wall or a pool, whether it be above ground, below ground, would not allow the dune to shift and migrate like it's supposed to do. And you don't have the authority to override the DEP rules with your local regulations. Like you can have local regs that are more stringent, but they don't override the state, so this is actually a state rule, and it's protection of interests of flood control and storm damage prevention. So there's no mitigation or enhancement allowed in the dune to allow a project to happen. So-
Amy, if I may, this is Chris Wynn. The commission recently approved a project about 100 yards away for the replacement and enhancement of a concrete wall that is right at the top of the coastal bank in the same resource area on the river.
Right, that's a pre-existing structure.
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about here as well. So we have an existing deteriorating wall, and we have an existing deteriorating pool. And in order to, they're both, of course, unavoidably linked to one another. As we talked about in one of the earlier meetings, and why we hired Mr. Zimmer was, and on the site visit in July of last year, it was suggested that the commission might be able to allow the replacement of what we have exactly where we have it, which is something, of course, that we're open to. But the challenge in why we were going circular on this is, wouldn't a pool that's in ground allow for better performance of the dune, but then also create the materials, the natural materials that would allow us to go do the further enhancements? So, we're not against replacing what we have, but it doesn't give replacing what we have with substantially the same thing, but it doesn't afford any of those other benefits. And we thought that was the sole reason why we were being asked to incur all of this cost and expense to hire all of these professionals to render their opinion.
I think anytime you have a project with varying discrepancies, getting on, whether it's Mr. Zimmer or Attorney DeLisi, if this were just something that could be permitted, obviously there's not a need for that. But you have a much more extenuating circumstances on a site that, although before your time, the previous owner ignored a lot of the regulations. And so you've got a site that certainly needs to try to get back into some sort of compliance. And I think the commission's goal in a lot of cases is to work with folks. There's a number of other items at that property that are not in compliance, but what you're asking for is the pool. And we talked about different ways and whether that would be feasible if certain work were done. I'm not trying to get away from this, but the house that's on Piers on Collier, that's almost a box, does that house have a pool in it?
It's up on the second floor.
So it's an elevated pool.
It's an elevated pool. It's on the second floor
Okay.
of the house. It doesn't touch the ground.
Well, it leaves a lot to be desired, that's for sure.
Sure. Well, Frank, and I appreciate the thought of looking into what some of these other projects are. One of the things that Patrick Brennan from I forget the name of his engineering firm, sorry.
Amory Engineering, yeah.
Yes, yeah. One of the things that Pat made the distinction of in his letter is there's a FEMA definition of structure, but the word habitable seemed to have been omitted from a lot of the discussion here. So a habitable structure is, according to Pat and some of the other experts that have come over here and provided guidance, is one that requires the elevation, but a structure, non-habitable structure, does not. Otherwise, no one would have a septic system. There wouldn't be fence posts in the ground, of which you see fences all the way up and down Humrock. So how would I get and appreciate the elevated nature of it, and bring us right back. And I know we promised not to rehash history here, but the thought process of why an in-ground pool versus an above-ground pool was to try to avoid, should there be coastal flowage there, and redirect anything to cause any concerns or issues. We're not against the replacing the existing pool with an above ground pool. We thought from the guidance everybody was providing that by putting it in the ground, it actually eliminated the primary concern of redirecting water should there ever be a flood, a flood situation, a flood tide situation. Now, of course, the water doesn't get up that high, or has not since I've been here. I'm sure it will in our lifetime, of course. But that the goal was to try to have something that would, in fact, have the proper performance around it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we did discuss that, and that was part of the. I understand that logic. It was proposed by you or Jeff or John. I can't recall, but that was sort of one of the questions was if a pool was in the ground, that any overwash or whatever wouldn't be redirected. That was something that was discussed while we were at the site.
But I do think the key point here on structure, a habitable structure under FEMA versus a non-habitable structure, which could be anything from a storm drain to a septic system to a wall, is classified under a different definition. And Jeff, I'm not sure if you have anything to add on that front.
I think the document that defines it out is attached to Mr. Brennan's letter. So you just take a look at that. You should be able to see that.
And the only thing I can, and I think we probably are kind of at our end for discussion, but if you recall, all that went on with regards to creating a dune to protect parts of Humrock, and we had multiple discussion with lots of different agencies, FEMA, CZM, all those different agencies, and we could not build anything other than a dune to protect Humrock, was the consensus from all those agencies. When it was talked about whether or not a revetment or a seawall or what could be done to protect those houses, we kept circling back that the only thing that could be done to protect them was some form of a dune.
Well, Well, Frank, I mean, isn't that why we have the no adverse impact standard, right? I mean, we have a situation here where nothing we can do could protect this dune because there is no dune really. And the whole concept behind the beauty of this proposal, which is something that I haven't seen in my time representing clients, is to actually rebuild this dune using material on the site and create a performance where there is none presently, naturally. So and that's why, I wrote the letter to basically say, your standard is no adverse impact. And when you look at this in a whole, there's not even a question that the circumstance with the proposed in-ground pool versus the existing partially above ground pool, along with all the mitigation, is clearly a better situation. Clearly. It's exactly what your regulations are designed to protect. So that's why I encourage the board to look at it through that viewpoint.
And I get that, Jeff. And just as when we look at houses in Hummerock and we allow people to pave, we only allow them to pave in places where there was pavement before. So, for Mr. Wynn to come back to the commission and say, well, I've got an above ground pool. Now, a lot of those driveways in Hummerock were probably never conditioned, nor do I believe this pool was conditioned.
Never.
But I don't know that we've ever looked back that far, but I don't think if you had found it being conditioned by a Concom, I think you would have given it to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that you guys existed in the early to mid 80s. So,
there was a commission.
okay. I was a teenager driving by on my boat, and at the time, and thought how cool it was that these people had this property. But that
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it, Mr.
way-
Wynn, and I do appreciate what you're trying to do here. So, all right. So, I do think that we've given this as much time as we can. And so I'm looking for a motion, I guess, at this point.
I make a motion to close.
Do I have a second?
Second, from
It's
Jen.
Jen Foley. So all in favor, Doug?
Yeah, I think we should close. Yep.
Okay. Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay. All right.
Moving on.
We've got a lot of things to think about here. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jeff. Mr. Wynn.
Okay, Bastion Lane.
4 Bastion Lane. And so we met at the site, and I think we have a revision. And I don't think, do we need anything else on this to close? Anybody want to speak to this after our meeting?
Yeah, you do. You need to, we need to have more. I'm looking for Jeff Bassett or Greg or James. I'll unmute Greg. Greg.
Good evening.
Greg.
Hi. Excellent. Yeah, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, representing K&E Construction, the applicant. As you know, this is a continued public hearing for the raise and reconstruct of a home at 4 Bastion Lane. Since the last meeting, we performed a site walk with CZM, as well as we submitted a revised plan to this commission. The revised plan essentially addressed 4 things. The top of coastal bank delineation was changed as a result of that meeting with CZM. We previously had it further to seaward, but CZM suggested that we move it to the top of the embankment. So we've revised that. on the site plan, and accordingly, the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zone to that bank. Secondly, we added a row of plantings along the top of the bank. Right now, this property is developed right up to the top of the bank, essentially with lawn surface. What we proposed was a row of Rosa rugosa plantings at the top of the coastal bank. We revised our erosion control barrier, our limit of work. We pulled it back so that it closely follows the back of the existing house. So it would limit any erosion. It would limit construction vehicles from accessing close to the coastal bank top. And lastly, the contour lines were revised in our cross section depicting where the coastal bank was in the profile that we provided. Previous to that plan revision, we had made other plan revisions, including changes to the driveway showing surface drainage arrows that water was not to be directed to the down gradient of butter, but it was supposed to be directed to the driveway and ultimately to Bastion Lane. We've revised the location of the roof dry well system, again, as a result of discussing this with the abutter at the down gradient lot line. The house, as you see it, is further away from the coastal bank than what exists today. It's set back approximately 34 feet, while the existing house at its closest point is 20 feet from the coastal bank. A very slight increase in impervious surface. It's a 19% increase. It does not trigger the stormwater bylaw. DEP had no additional comments on this. I'd turn it over to you.
Thanks, Greg. Penny, Amy, do you want to comment after that?
Yeah, sure, real quick. So like Greg said, we indeed did have a nice site visit with two of the regional officials from CZM. And one of the things that we observed, and the reason why the coastal bank was moved up, was we observed, which was like not really brought out during the last hearing, was that there were pretty significant sloughs on at least one side of the property. On the right side, which we also have photos demonstrating that, you know, when that happened from an abutter. And also that part of that there's a double revetment down on the bottom, that the coastal bank is also primarily vegetated with Japanese knotweed, which is not entirely deep rooted. So that's to be noted. CZ definitely was concerned about the cliff. That was my take is that they had some concern, you know, it's happened and that it happens without notice, so it could happen again. And, you know, any vibration or hard overdigs for a foundation should be minimized or avoided. And that perhaps adding vegetation like they did add, which is the Rosa rugosa to the top, which is a salt tolerant, deep rooted plant, would be advantageous for that bank. And otherwise, I mean, I also note that there's a right of way, which is still subject of a land court matter, which is not yet moved. And, or maybe it has now, but it as of the date of this plan, it's still through the house. So without that right of way being moved, that's kind of an issue for going forward with the plan. And happy to see stormwater infiltrators. I mean, the size of the house is a, you know, a little bit big, but I think if they take caution as to how they install the foundation, that would be good. That's about all my comments.
Thanks, Amy. Brendan, you were out there. Any thoughts?
I think that Amy covered it all. I have really no additional thoughts besides all that. I was out there, so
It's not fair when she goes through all that, spend all that time.
I
looking
think
at
that's fantastic.
things. Okay. Andy?
No further questions for me right now.
Okay. Jen?
I'm thinking through the land court stuff and how that, without that being finalized, not to get ahead of ourselves, but we wouldn't want to close on this because that could have a material impact on the plans. Is
No.
that kind of correct at all, Amy, or what's the impact on it?
I think that it shouldn't stop us from closing, but if plans now change as a result of the outcome of the court case, then they would have to come back to us.
Got it. Okay.
Right. Penny? You were there?
Nope, I was out there too, and I'm glad to see the Rose Bagoza get rid of the knotweed at the top of the cliff there, which will be good. And the erosion barrier, that I think, Frank, you made the point. It's very, very important that no vehicles go beyond that. Anywhere near the edge of the cliff there, that they stay on this side of the erosion barrier. But otherwise, I think it looks good. I like what they've done. And I thank you, Greg.
You're welcome to expand on that a little more. If you wanted to potentially add a condition in, we could put an orange construction fence along that side of the erosion control barrier too, as just an extra protection.
Yeah, we just don't. I know Frank was concerned, and I was too, that no vehicles, not one truck turns around past that erosion control. You know, that it really, that's almost like sacred ground. You can go out there and plant, but other than that, nothing heavy. So I
Understood.
think that's a good idea to put the fence up. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Doug?
Okay.
No, I think the focus has been on the protection of the bank itself, and that would be my concern as well. So during construction, this is a full foundation, I would assume. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
I think that was a question for Greg, Penny.
It is a full concrete foundation. However, it's a walkout style foundation on the Bastion Lane side of the project. So it utilizes the natural grade out there. You'll see that there's no changes in the contours on either side of the house.
Okay.
The deepest part of the excavation is the part that is closest to the coastal bank. That represents about a 4.5 foot deep dig for the foundation at that end. The end closest to Bastion Lane is essentially a 0 foot dig. It's built at grade.
all right, well, 4.5 is less than 8. So yeah, I think just taking care and watching, just which I'm sure will happen during construction. We can't imagine anybody wanting to see that bank slough off if you live there. So, so no, I'm good with it.
What kind of credentials do you have to get to make that observation, Doug? That 4.5 is less than 8.
You have to be a land surveyor with a stamp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Go to first grade.
Wow.
No, you have to do more than that.
I bet. I think you have to do a little more than that.
I'm tired, Frank.
Yeah, I can tell. You're an easy target tonight.
Yeah.
I have those evenings myself. Feel free.
I have that one.
So, Greg, I think the only other concern that I had is just that they really need to be careful and excavate in this foundation to minimize any overdig. I know you need some room to get in footings and stuff like that, but that cliff all being glacial till gets really unstable. And, I know part of this is within the foundation that's already there. But you're probably going to be digging a little bit deeper, and it just, anything they can do to minimize disturbance on that cliff, and it's only going to be to the benefit of the owners as well.
Understood.
And they, as I think Amy pointed out, their property sort of sits forward of almost everybody else. There's already been, I call it sloughing on either side where the cliff has dropped away. So they seem to almost be the most forward property right in that area. Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience?
We do, Frank. John
Bastion
Dinan
Lane.
has his hand up.
Okay.
Unmute, John.
Mr. Dinan, you just want to give us your name and address, please.
Hi, John Dinan. I'm in about 2 Bastion Lane. How are you? Thank you for your time. I
evening.
know this is long,
Sure.
and there's a few issues that I've talked
What's
to
your,
Amy.
what's your address, Mr. Dinan?
2 Bastion Lane.
2 Bastion, thank you.
Okay. As far as a few issues, okay, back to the question of the land court, that has not been settled at this point. Okay, second
Yep.
issue, there is no existing foundation on the house for Bastion Lane. It's on pylons. So they reference to, there is a foundation, there isn't. And I'm just gonna list my issues unless you want to go one by one, or I don't want to take your time. I know I'm limited to 2 minutes. The
Oh,
other issue is the electric line. They are moving an electric pole, which my house receives its electricity from the pole. That is being moved, and I can tell by the print that the line exists to the new house that's to be built, but nothing to my house. So I hope I'm not going to be cut off from electricity. I mean, that has not been addressed. And as far as the sewer line, which is as this has been mentioned before, it's spaghetti lines up here. The sewer line comes up through my property, feeds my house, 2 Bastion Lane, feeds 4 Bastion Lane, and also is going under the new house to 8 Bastion Lane, their sewer line, which I don't know if it's okay to build a house on top of a sewer line that serves a house. I don't know. That's why I'm bringing this forth. So as far as those are my concerns, as far as the trees that are being taken down, there's no replacement of those trees. I mean, I love the rows of ragusas going up, but I mean, in previous projects, I know there's always been a plan like 28 Gilson as far as the plantings. We not going to address this at this point, or is that going to be down the line? And I know, Frank, you hate kicking the can down the line.
no. You're a butter to the property, and this is why we have a hearing, and that's why people are invited to attend and comment. So anything that is pertinent. If those are your comments or questions, I'd like to let the engineer start by answering those, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So the first one, if I got it in order right, is a foundation.
Correct. Okay.
So, and I don't know if you want to comment on that, Greg.
Sure. What's proposed is a concrete foundation that would be excavated. I don't believe I made the reference to the existing foundation. I personally have no knowledge whether it's on pilings or piers, or if there's a block foundation under the existing house or not. What is under it, though, would be demoed and replaced with a concrete poured foundation.
Okay, we didn't walk around the whole house, but I know on the side going up to walk to the front, it's a cement block foundation, because we were trying to look through the door and get an idea of the depth of the floor in the foundation. So I do recall that as being cement block, at least in that location. Maybe there's part of the house that's supported by piers, but on the, I would say the east
Okay.
side of, or north
Frank, it's-
side.
Or, I mean, it's a dirt foundation. That's, there's no foundation underneath it, but that's fine. It's just, as long as you're aware of it, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, my observation was a concrete
Yeah.
block foundation.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the entire foundation, but the area that we walked around, that's what I noted. The piece of the easement, so is this, we can't condition a project on someone else's property, but that's, just explain the easement to me, Greg, or us to the commission.
Sure. So there's a right of way that comes onto the property, which contains access rights. It also has utility rights in it. My client has filed with the land court to relocate that right of way and easement. That would include relocating the physical utilities to within that new location. We depict that new location on the site plan. So while there might be a temporary cut in the power to the house, would certainly be reconnected, and we'd certainly be talking with the neighbors and discussing that when that work takes place. But no work that I see would be required, on the neighbor's property to accommodate that. It would all be done on this subject property.
Okay, can I interject here, Frank, or is it?
No, let's.
Yeah,
up to
as
you.
far as, there's gotta be work done on my property. I have underground service. I mean, and I don't wanna, chew on a bone here, but, I don't, that doesn't answer my question, as far as I have to have power to my meter. That's gonna be dug all the way up. I'm missing something here.
Sure. So the service would be cut essentially at the lot line and redirected to that utility pole, that new connection point on
Wait.
the subject property.
Okay, to the lot line is now you're talking. Okay, and my present power goes right under the proposed building. That's what my question is. So that's got to be rerouted somehow. But I don't think it's a major issue. It just hasn't not been addressed. It's a concern to me, no one else. I like electricity.
Is that is that an aerial that goes from an existing pole to that house, or is it underground now?
It's underground, correct, presently. It's been for 30 plus years.
So is there an easement for that, Greg?
I believe so. Oh,
So
go
there's-
ahead, Greg.
Yeah, there's a right of way that serves as an access and a utility. Whether it's physically constructed in that or not, I don't know the answer. It's not marked out on the ground surface where the utilities are out there. They're subsurface. But we would temporarily disconnect it and then reroute it to the new easement location. The new easement location is shown on the plan here.
Mhm.
Right,
Okay,
and
okay.
our orders are subject to the applicant receiving all applicable easements, agreements, licenses from all necessary parties. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
Okay,
separate
All
from
right.
really the project that we're approving.
Okay, so the same would hold true for the sewer?
Yes.
Okay. And the other one with trees, and I guess I didn't pay a lot of attention to what was being removed for trees. Can you elaborate on that, Greg?
Sure. There are a couple of trees as you come up the driveway to this property on the left-hand side that we call out to be cut and removed. We obviously don't have permission to work on other people's properties. Those trees we'd selectively be looking at, and if they were on our property, we would be removing them. They are very close to the lot line.
Yeah.
But they're along the left-hand side of the northern lot line.
Yeah.
We
Is
call
there
them
any
out.
plan, is there any plan to replant a couple of trees or anything to that effect?
We weren't proposing any trees along that side, no.
That's something we can condition.
Okay, well, that's a good point to bring up. I mean, they're pretty decent trees along there, and I know that the garage is being removed, so there's an area that's available to do some other planting. Okay. What else did I miss?
Frank, you did excellent job. You covered all the bases I talked about. But as far as at the last meeting, and this is a PS note, the wall, the existing block wall in the back, that would be the west side of the lot. That the new easements gonna go through. They're gonna be knocking down a section of that block wall and contouring the land. Is that my understanding? Which would degrade the existing wall. And I'm not an engineer, so I need your help.
No, let's let Greg.
Yeah.
So that building sort of creates a retaining wall of sorts. Greg, what's the plan for that?
Yeah, so that building, that detached building is coming down. It's being replaced with loam and seed and driveway at that location. Between that and number 4 Bastion Lane, which is the property just to the west of that, there is a retaining wall there. That retaining wall does make an L shape, and it runs right along the driveway to this property. The abutter is correct. We are cutting into that retaining wall slightly on the eastern end of it. We're cutting about 10 feet of it off with the new driveway location. But all of the retaining wall that abuts number 4 Bastion Lane stays in place, stays intact. We're not touching that segment of the wall at all. I don't see that we're gonna change the integrity of that wall with anything that we are doing here. We're cutting about 10 feet off up next to the proposed driveway.
Does that help?
No, it explains what's going on, but I appreciate it.
It seems like
Greg,
it
because
seems like at some point it would be good for you to be talking with the people that are building this or something to that effect, to maybe
Frank,
work out. Yeah,
I'm retired and I'm at home all the time, so
Okay.
I'm not saying anymore.
okay. All right. Well, no, we want to make sure we address those pieces, and that's
And as far as you addressed it, but Frank, Greg said as far as the electrical is gonna come through the proposed right of way, so that goes through. Now that comes into the probably about 50 feet from where my electrical box is. And I'm not assuming, because I know better, how is it gonna get from my property line to my meter, not box?
Greg.
So it'll get cut and redirected right along the property line between the two properties.
Okay, so they're gonna dig it up and bring it up to my meter on my property.
I don't think they have any intent to come onto your property and dig it up to your meter. I think their intent is to cut it at the lot line on their property and then redirect it to the power source. Not to come onto your property and touch your electric meter or dig up your lawn in any way, no.
Okay, that explains it. So they're gonna redirect it down to the right of way. Okay,
Correct.
okay, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think
Frank, we have Rachel Watsky is raised her hand. I'm gonna unmute Rachel, okay?
Yep.
Okay, hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I am Rachel Watsky representing 6 Bastion Lane, so the property at the abutter to the east, or yes, west on this on this plan. It's west on this plan. Just wanting to jump in that we have been updated about the revised plan, and we appreciated the engineer shifting the dry well closer to the driveway and making sure that the grading on 4 Bastion would be aiming runoff towards the right-of-way easement rather than potentially putting pressure onto the retaining wall. So our concerns were addressed. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Kathy Barry.
Oh, hold on, Kathy Barry, hold on.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi. So I live at number 3, Bastion Lane, and I was just wondering if there was any plan as to what the traffic pattern is going to be for the trucks to come in and get up there and turn around without getting too close to the edge and then coming back down again. As you all know, Bastion Lane itself, the dirt road is quite narrow, and there is a utility pole out in the middle of across between myself and number 6. And it does hang low, and trucks that deliver from UPS sometimes come and they pull the wires down. And we have to have, somebody come back out and rehang the wires. So I was just wondering if there was any plan for a traffic pattern that's going to be the least disruptive on the street.
Greg, do you know if the applicant's given any thought to that?
The only access that we have is the access off of Bastion Lane. So I imagine that's where all of our material is coming in and out of. They'd obviously have to take all of that into consideration, though. They can't disrupt services and utilities on the street. If in the event they ever did, they would have to repair it. But that's the only access that there is to this site.
Kathy, do you have any other questions? Excuse me. Kathy, does that satisfy your question?
I can't unmute myself. Wait a
You're
minute.
unmuted, Kathy.
Oh, okay, thank you. So it really doesn't sound like it's gonna work on that road. I have a row of hedges in the front of my yard. I don't know. I don't want to have my hedges replaced, and I don't want my lawn ripped up from trucks coming down and trying to swing up from my property up to the hill. So.
Okay, well, unfortunately, the purview of our commission is really to deal with the Wetlands Protection Act and the drainage, things like that. I could see it's a tight site, just going in and out in a pickup or a van. So I know that they're going to have to work at that, and I think they're aware of what they have to do there, and if it's the only access into that property, I'm not sure what their alternatives would be other than just to be real careful with that. I don't know how else to answer your question. I mean, they have to put down a stabilized entrance, and again, it's really, we want to make sure that they're not bringing mud and whatever. And I get your concern, but I got to believe they're fairly aware that this isn't going to be an easy project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to close.
A motion to close on 4 Bastion Lane. That's Penny. How about a second?
I'll second it. Doug?
Doug's going to second. All in favor? Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. 39 Arrowwood, we got a request for continuation from,
Motion to continue 39 Arrowwood to December 6th.
okay. We have a second?
Second.
Second,
So I think that Doug beat you to that, Jen.
he did.
He did. All in favor? Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Number 17 Border Street.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming
You're
that
gonna open
Doug.
it.
Oh, we need to open that one. And Doug's gonna reclose himself from that.
Why?
It looks like the applicant is Merrill Engineering.
Oh, that's a good reason.
I don't,
Unless you think you can do that, it's up to you, Doug.
no, I should probably. Who's the representative? I'll go by that.
Dana. It's Dana.
Oh, yeah, I better recuse myself on that.
Okay. So on October 18th, 2021 at 5:30 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Kyle Christensen for work related to the construction of a pier at location Lot 17, Water Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information and access to the virtual meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. Good evening.
Frank, I'm gonna unmute Dana Altabello. Then Dana, you can just let us know if you need anybody else to do too.
Sure, thank you. Actually, the applicant Carl Christensen and his attorney Adam Brodsky are both on the call as well.
Okay, give us what you're gonna do. Dana, do you want to kind of briefly explain the
Sure.
project?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. My name is Dana Altabello. I'm with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I'm here, as I mentioned, with the applicant Carl Christensen, as well as his attorney Adam Brodsky. This project is located on the westerly side of Border Street, on a property that was previously a portion of 143 Border Street in the past. The property has over 900 excuse me, linear feet of frontage along the Gulf River and consists of approximately 17 acres. Much of the area along the river itself contains wetland resource areas associated with the river. The wetland resource areas in this part of the property were reviewed recently as part of the house construction associated with SE 68-2912, which was approved previously or earlier this year. The site does contain bordering vegetated wetlands, salt marsh, FEMA flood hazard area, as you can see shown in orange, and the riverfront areas are both shown in purple as you work your way into the site. And the 100-foot and 50-foot buffers to the top of bank are shown in green as you work your way into the site. The applicant wishes to construct a water-dependent pier with an elevated timber walkway, an 8-foot by 6-foot platform, and a 3-foot wide aluminum gangway with a 10 by 20 float at the bottom. The 4-foot wide elevated walkway is approximately 150 feet long. There will be 2 by 6 decking along the walkway, which will be spaced 1 inch apart to allow sunlight to penetrate the ground below and the salt marsh below. The walkway will have wire handrails as well as a 2-inch by 6-inch top railing for safety installed along the length of the walkway. The majority of the walkway will be supported by 4x4 wooden posts with 11 6x6 posts at the end to provide some additional strength as you get out towards the end of the pier. The walkway has been set at elevation 9.5, but varies in height above the salt marsh from approximately 4.2 feet out to or up to 6.7 feet off or above the salt marsh as you get down towards the end of the pier itself. This is measured down from the bottom of the stringers to the salt marsh below. At a minimum, we provided the minimum 4 feet above the salt marsh as required for the 1-to-1 minimum height to width ratio. As you get out, approximately the last 100 feet of the dock itself will have a 1.5-to-1 height to width ratio, which has been recommended recently by DMF. So we get up a little bit higher as you get further out on the pier and we get into a little more salt marsh. We've tried to provide a little additional elevation above there to provide as much sunlight penetration as possible. The float itself will be constructed with 6x6 skids, which will be 18 inches below the float itself to keep the float off the substrate below. These measures will help minimize the impacts on the resource areas as much as possible. And additionally, we've tried to minimize the number of pilings as best we could. We're not proposing any pilings within the water itself, just along the salt marsh on the way out there. And the work will be completed basically up by the house from the first bent. The contractor will work his way out from that point up on the previously installed structure and just kind of push out into the salt marsh itself. So there's all the work will be elevated above the resource area and should substantially minimize the impacts on the resource area itself. I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Does any other, anybody else from the applicant want to speak, Mr. Brodsky? Or?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Snow. Good evening, everyone. I have nothing to add, but I'm available to answer any questions together with Mr. Altobello.
Great, thank you. Jen? Or Amy, do you want to speak to this first?
Yeah, let's let Amy go first.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, we're all pretty familiar with this property, I think, because it was, you know, very recently in front of the commission with the orders for the house and the site work. You know, we confirm the resource areas as part of, as accurate as part of that notice of intent. And I think this project is pretty straightforward. And as you know, projects like this out over the salt marsh and the water are really jurisdictional to the Chapter 91 and waterways licensing. So that's going to be a primary driver for this project. That appears to meet the requirements that you need for orders. So we did get comments from DMF on height, like Dana referenced, and it looks pretty good to me. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
I think I'm okay for now.
All right. Andy?
I'm okay right now.
Brendan?
I'm okay.
Penny?
I just want to ask one question. Is that dock at the end, is that removable in the winter or does that stay out there all, you know, all year?
The float itself would be removed in the winter, and the gangway is usually brought up on top of the pier itself, just, you know, secured up there so it's not dragged across the salt marsh or anything like that. And the float is kind of floated down to a boat ramp, I believe was the intent. But Carl might be able to speak more definitively on that, but I believe the intent was to head down. I'm not exactly sure where, but I think it was to be removed at a boat ramp or something like that, where it would have less impacts and easily could be gotten out of the water.
Okay, I was just curious if that was, you know, going to be there all winter.
Maybe Mr. Christensen can answer that, so we could let him in. Thanks, Penny.
I think someone may need to unmute, Mr.
Yeah, I just asked him, do it again.
Okay, there we go. I think I'm unmuted now.
You got it.
So the intent is Keith from Harbor Moorings is going to do the construction of the dock of the pier, and the intent is to have him remove it every year. And I think he does a number of similar projects down on the river, so he's very familiar with how to get them out safely and how to get it stored. And I have other places I can store it once we get it out of the water.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Penny. I know some people, will bring theirs up on their property somewhere, and I believe we just have had orders before where we don't want the dock or the float left on the marsh. If it's brought up onto upland or out of the marsh area, it's been okay to keep that on the property, but
yeah, I think the easiest thing's going to be, I don't want it on the marsh either. So I think the easiest thing is if you look on the right-hand side of the drawing, there's actually a cart path that goes down there.
Yeah.
Get it out of the water, bring it up the cart path, and then there's a pole barn farther up near the main barn up there that I can store it in the pole barn.
Okay.
That's my intent. So I'm going to talk with Keith about, make sure that's all feasible and possible, but that's the plan.
Great, thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience?
Seeing none.
Well, I guess we'll let you go on your journey. I think there's a few more steps in the process, but okay.
So I'll make a motion.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Go ahead, Penny.
I make a motion to close.
For a second,
Order.
Penny had a motion to close.
Second.
Orders, and Andy seconded. All in favor? Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Great. Good evening. Thank you. 10 Pin Oak Drive. On October 18th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws, and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Daniel Kelleher for work related to construction of a garage at location 10 Pin Oak Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the town website. Good evening.
I'm gonna unmute Greg, or I also see James, but I guess I'm gonna go with Greg. So hold on.
Good evening.
Evening, Greg.
For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing Daniel Kelleher, the property owner. This is a notice of intent to allow the construction of a 24 by 26 foot garage addition in reconfiguration of the driveway at his property located at 10 Pin Oak Drive. This is a notice of intent very similar. We had filed the same exact project in 2018. The permits have expired, however, and the project was never commenced. There were no changes between that former approved project and the project before you tonight. The property shown here, it's about half an acre in size, 20,221 square feet. It's entirely upland land area. At the bottom of the screen, just off the screen, you'll see a blue line. That blue line represents the bordering vegetated wetland. We had that delineated in August of this year. As you'll see, it's completely off locus, but the 50-foot buffer zone in red extends onto the property, as well as the 100-foot buffer zone onto the property. The addition is attached to the existing home. It's well outside of the 50-foot buffer. The setback between the addition and the wetland at its closest point is about 88 feet. It's area that is currently gravel driveway and lawn surface. The stormwater associated with this, we're taking the roof and directing it to a series of dry wells in the front yard. The driveway area is being directed into a small rain garden tucked into the back corner of the lot. The stormwater permit that was previously reviewed in 2018, the commission had hired John Chesia to review the stormwater and ultimately had approved the stormwater permit separately than the order of conditions. I turn it over to you for any questions or comments.
Thanks, Greg. Amy, do you want to start?
Yeah. All right, so I mean, it's a little confusing, and actually I think Penny and Frank and Richard are the only members that were involved originally, but so
I think I was as well.
were you? Okay, so this,
Yeah.
it all started in, actually, when I came on the scene here in Scituate in 2017. Somehow it came to our attention that, actually Pat is on the original letter, that there was tree and brush clearing in the buffer to BVW. So there was a violation pegged on that property in response to our notice. And I guess a meeting with the commission in September 2017. An NOI was filed, which also incorporated this addition, the garage addition. So like Greg said, I mean, I'm agreeing with the fact that it was put under review, although my notes reference that the orders under 68, 26, 84, which did involve, you know, this same project, are actually still valid, although I don't see any evidence that they were recorded. So, so I guess that's how this potentially makes sense to me. But anyway, so yeah, it was reviewed by John Chesia, the stormwater component, and all those comments about whether it's, you know, applicable and should meet due to increase in impervious stand. One note I do have is that the site plan is not entirely accurate, as it does not reflect a shed up in the upper right corner of the driveway. I know I observed that, and there's also some gardening, and it doesn't appear that any of the replanting of the buffer was done, although maybe we could get some clarification of what activities under the order that were done. And other than that, DEP had no comments. I think that you could issue new orders, or yeah, probably issued the same orders that you had before, which had a number of special conditions, which I can rattle off if you'd like. Just let me know. You
Check
got
with numbers first. All right. You want to add something, Amy?
Yeah, okay, so, well, all right, so the special conditions basically were the driveways impermeable, additional plantings should be installed per direction of a wetland scientist and the conservation agent, planting plan, and we do have the planting plan. The intent is to add diversity to the grass swale, at least 2 growing seasons. And there's an O&M plan, no runoff shall leave the staging, silt sock, stockpile area. Just kind of like the general stuff. Oh, testing of soil to make sure that there's a minimum of 2 feet separation of groundwater to confirm infiltration rate and further evaluate soil conditions. Soil vary, alternative plan may be required. And then conservation posts. So, I mean, I guess my question, maybe Doug can actually answer this, is if you're, say we have a new 12 by 12 shed or something like that, is that going to impact the calculations that were run for the groundwater, I mean, the stormwater? Like, I'm
Not to
review,
any significant extent.
Yeah, that's why I felt that way. Yeah.
Okay. I do remember going out with this. I remember meeting Pat, and then there was some, I guess, inadvertent clearing at the time. Figured out where the wetlands line were. And I know that they did stabilize some of that at the time, and then we had this hearing. It's too bad that they had to circle back to this again. So, but, okay, we'll move to members. Doug?
So the proposed replanted disturbed buffer area, Amy, that's already part of the orders that we would repeat, that has to be planted, and then if it's already been
Correct.
planted, then that part's just done.
Yeah. Yes, although I don't think it was. I don't think anything was done, honestly. But Greg,
Okay.
maybe you can help us with that.
The site, the barren soils that were out there were stabilized, but the shrub plantings were not done. Those would be done under the new order.
Yep.
All right. And the rain garden, that's already included in the order?
That was part of the original order, and that would remain in this order. Yes.
Okay. No, that seems pretty clear then.
Okay. Penny?
No, I'm good.
Jen?
Yep, all set.
Andy?
I'm okay.
Brendan?
I'm good.
Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
No.
So, Amy, do we have to, are we gonna issue another set of orders? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it kind of reminds me of some projects that you might be very familiar with that never got recorded. You know what I mean? It's same orders.
Right.
And we'll just, I don't think I'll change anything but the dates, really.
Okay. So
Unless
Greg,
you think-
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, maybe you can
like-
remind the applicant that get these
Record 'em.
recorded.
Yes. Yep, I will.
Get those into us right away. And then, because I know the contractors never get their own project done, what's the most amount of time we can give him for the project? It seems a shame.
3 years. 3 years is a
years?
good amount of time, and then you can file for a request to extend the orders.
3 years just never seems long enough when you're working on your own project. But, all right, we'll start there. And we didn't have anybody in the audience, right?
Nope.
So I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close 10 Pin Oak.
And Amy, we don't have to redo the stormwater, right? That's,
No.
I think it appears that the stormwater would stand since the project is the same. I mean, I would like the plan to reflect the shed and it be accurate.
okay. Greg?
I'll gladly add the shed. It's well outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but I will add it to the plan.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'll second, there's a
So
motion
we
on the
have a-
table, I'll second that.
And all in favor, Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 1, Bayberry. Can we do 1 and 2 together, or they have to be done separate?
Why don't you read both notices, and I think we can talk about them collectively.
And
I
then
don't-
vote them separate?
Vote them definitely separate and read them separate.
Yep.
Questions are going to pertain to both. And
Okay.
Greg, I don't know. What do you think, Greg? Makes sense.
I was going to introduce them kind of collectively and then talk about each individual lot. So
Yeah.
if you want to read both notices, it'll let us go kind of fluidly in between the two of them, but.
Fluid's what we want.
Okay.
All right, good. On October 18th, 2021 at 5:30 PM, the Town Hall Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of John Barron for work related to the construction of a new single-family dwelling and associated driveway, septic system, utilities, landscaping, and grading at location 1 Bayberry Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information, access, and virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. October 18th, 2021, 5:30 PM, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of John Barron for work related to the construction of a new single-family dwelling, associated driveway, septic system, utilities, landscaping, grading at location number 2 Bayberry Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information, access to virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the town website.
Excellent. Good to go?
Yes, please.
All right. Gregory Morse Engineering, representing John Barron, the applicant. As just was read into the record, this is for property located at 14 Bayberry Lane, lots 1 and lot 2. The existing property as a whole was about an acre in size, has an existing home on it, number 14 Bayberry Lane, has a detached outbuilding, has a pool on it. It's developed with a driveway, lawn areas, on-site septic system, utilities. The applicant recently went before the planning board to divide that property into 2 lots, lot 1 and lot 2, each being about half an acre in size. The plan that's on the board in front of you right now, this is lot 1. Lot 1, the proposal is to pick up the existing house and to relocate it onto lot 1. So you can see the property line, which is the black line in bold, centrally located on the lot here. You can see the proposed location of the house. Kind of in a lighter gray line, you'll see the location of the existing house, which you'll notice goes across that lot line onto lot 2. So we would be relocating the house again to that new location. The wetland resources that we have located here on the opposite side of street off of Bayberry, kind of at the top of the page, there is a salt marsh on the opposite side of the street behind the homes on the opposite side of the street. The 100-foot buffer zone to that salt marsh extends onto the property. That's what the green line is that's depicted. And then the remaining area of the lot, the majority of the lot, is located in the FEMA floodplain. FEMA floodplain at this location is at elevation 15. The topography on this lot, for reference, at the low point, which would be the north property corner, is approximately elevation 8, while the southern boundary at the bottom of the page is approximately elevation 16 or 17. So the majority of the lot is in that FEMA zone AE. So the proposal with the new house to bring it into compliance with FEMA is to construct a new foundation under it. The new foundation would be equipped with flood vents. It would be a free draining foundation with the first floor elevated. The first floor is elevated which is 2 feet above the FEMA floodplain elevation. We would construct a new septic system to support the house. The septic system you'll see is at the southeasterly corner of this lot. A new septic tank and a new leaching field at that location for the house. And then a new driveway, the driveway service off of Bayberry Road straight on to the garage. There is fill being proposed to be brought in the front yard as well as the backyard around the septic system and around the foundation. Where this is FEMA floodplain, it is associated with the ocean. It's classified as land subject to coastal storm flowage. We don't feel that we would be altering floodwater velocities with this raising. The raising of the fill on this site is associated with the septic and is associated with the foundation, which are required to be at these elevations for FEMA and Title V compliance. DEP had no comments on this. You did put this out for peer review with Art Allen of Ecotech. I believe you have a letter from Mr. Allen confirming the resource areas on the lot here. I'd turn it over to you, or I can discuss lot 2.
Yeah, sure. I think we should go to the specifics a lot too. And then
Okay.
Okay. Hold on just a moment here. I'm pulling this plan up on my screen here at the house as well. So lot 2, again, this is a half-acre lot, 20,000 square feet. The same resource areas are going to apply here. There's salt marsh on the opposite side of Bayberry Lane, which is at the top of the page. There are houses on the opposite side of the street, and the salt marsh is behind those houses. So the 100-foot buffer zone extends onto this property. That's the line that's shown in green. The majority of this lot at the low point, which is Bayberry Road itself, again, is at approximately elevation 9, while the high point is the southern property line at the bottom of the screen. Elevation there is approximately elevation 14. So this entire property, again, located inside the FEMA zone at elevation 15. This lot here would keep the swimming pool that exists on the lot. It would keep the existing shed that is on the lot already. There is a detached garage that would be demolished, and then a new home that would be constructed at the front of the property. The home, being in the floodplain, would be required to have flood vents on it, and is required to be a minimum of a foot above FEMA floodplain elevation. What we've proposed is a first floor elevation of 16, which complies with the FEMA requirement of a foot. Utilities, again, would be elevated up above FEMA elevations. Utilities would be accessed off of Bayberry Road to the front of the house. We depict electric and gas water service to Bayberry Road on the front of the site. On the western side of the house is the driveway with access off of Bayberry in a Title V compliant septic system. Erosion control barriers on both lots are proposed around the limits of work. And again, this lot, you had Art Allen of Ecotech perform a site review, and I believe he's confirmed the resource areas that we've depicted here. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Amy, do you want to comment on these to start with?
Yeah, I do. So well, you know, this is a project within 100 feet of buffer of BVW for salt marsh and land subject to coastal storm flowage. And I mean, I guess the general comment is that there's a lot going on here. So much so that I'm a little unclear as to whether there are any retaining walls or infiltrators proposed for roof drains. And then a fill, I mean, they're building it up. So like on lot 2 goes from elevation 9 in the street up to 14. Is that what it is?
Yes.
So, I mean, so it's going up 5 feet, and then a lot 1 goes up to 17. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of fill coming on the property, as you know, because we come across this quite often. But you know, DEP does not have performance standards currently for land subject to coastal storm flowage, although they are pending, and reliable sources tell me that the stormwater handbook and land subject to coastal storm flowage will come out simultaneously, and they will be released for comment this fall. don't know if you've heard that update, but anyways, without it, you do go to our local regulations, and you do have some guidance with that. You know, you want to be considering impacts to storm damage prevention and flood control. So, and you know, diverting water, because I mean, I think that this area, it's mapped as AE for a reason. You know, it is pretty low, and it's a pretty dense neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and we've had experience with these types of homes before, and we've tried to work through to get the best project that we can, given the regulations that we have in place. I think that's my basic comments.
Okay, thank you. Jen, this is your neighborhood.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, when I first saw this come across my email, I was confused about where it was, just because I didn't know there was enough space for this. And like Amy highlighted, there's so much happening that it's a bit hard to follow. I think I'm okay for now, but I'll probably have something when I hear other people's questions.
Okay. Andy? Actually, you know what? Let me switch to Doug for a second.
Yeah,
There's a lot going on here.
That would be helpful.
So let's get an engineer's perspective on this. Not that everybody doesn't have some good ideas, but.
No, I was going to suggest that, Frank. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So just for the
it is a busy plan or plan.
No pressure, Doug.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, just for the record, everyone, I'm not a professional engineer. I just play one on TV.
Well, there you go. There's a lot of other people that kind of do that stuff.
So there are a few retaining walls to pick up the grading that there is in there. Essentially, though, it looks to me, I can put this in the form of a question to Greg, but it looks like you've got everything grading towards the street. So the concern to me, based on other projects we've had that are similar, is that the abutters become very concerned with any lot, fills in these smaller lots of having an adverse impact on their property. So I would imagine something similar like that would be in this case too. But it looks to me, so both lots have some retaining walls to take the curse off of some of the grading, but it is filling from the street up to the house to be able to elevate the house up to those elevations to get out of the flood zone. But then they've got a retaining wall to end that grading so it doesn't wrap all the way around the lot and then shed water towards the abutters. Is that kind of the basic drainage pattern you have, Greg?
It is the basic drainage pattern we have. Yes, we're draining from the house out to the street. There are a couple of small retaining walls off the corner of the house and along the edge of the driveway on this lot, as well as there's a retaining wall off the corner of the house on lot 1 as well. But it's not a large extensive wall system. On this one here, you see a kind of the northwest corner. There's a small wing wall that comes off the corner of the porch in the house. The purpose of that is that you don't have to bring the fill all the way around the house to the backyard. It helps limit the fill, and it makes it so you can have a free flow out of the basement for flood purposes if it was to flood.
Yeah, correct. And I was looking for the perk rate here. Would the soils be suitable for? Well, of course, it's going to be in fill. But so proposing somebody mentioned some roof drain, dry wells, infiltrator systems. Would that be appropriate for this site?
Yeah, we had perk tests on the site, anywhere from less than 2 minutes an inch was the fastest one. The slowest one, I believe, was 9 minutes an inch. So it certainly is feasible to do some roof infiltration on these sites. Collectively, looking at this property, it's about a 15% increase in impervious surface. The existing lot, being an acre in size, is pretty well developed. Aside from the existing home, there is a lot of impervious surface out there already. And where we're removing a lot of that, we're certainly adding some back, but it represents about a 15% increase, so that our total impervious is 9,600 square feet across both lots combined. So, but we could certainly add some roof dry wells. It certainly would help.
Yeah, sure. I think that would probably help settle some minds as they're looking at this, that at least it picks up the roof. The concern with everybody's going to be, I don't know if we have butters here tonight, but the typical kind of things you can think about is the water running out onto the road causing flooding and freezing in the winter, and et cetera, the things you've heard before, but they're very common concerns. So it would be, I think it would probably be nice to cover all the bases that you can. But other than that, I think you've designed this in a way that I think you're kind of doing the best you can to keep, like I said, to keep water from shedding off onto the immediate lots around this. So, all right, so I'll stop talking.
Okay, thank you for your input. Penny?
Yeah, we've conditioned a bunch of houses down here. They happen to be on the other side of the road. And those houses, because of the 50 foot, they were all put up on piling. So that alleviated the need for any fill or something to come in. There was no basements. They're up on piling so the water can free flow. My concern definitely is how much fill is coming in here. And I guess he'll be all right if it flows back, because the houses across the street, all of them are up on pilings. There's no foundations, to my knowledge, on that side anymore. But I'm concerned about the amount of fill that's coming in here, and to make sure that the street is not flooded because of the fill and the slope. Yeah, it's just, it's almost too bad that they just didn't put the houses up on pilings here and left the land the way it was, and everything could just flow as it has been. But that's my concern, and I'm sure the neighbors are a little concerned, and hopefully they put in the drainage for the roof runoff, at least help there. But I'm not crazy about all this fill. That's a lot of fill coming in. Okay, that's my 2 cents, Frank.
Okay, thank you. Andy?
I think my questions have been covered now.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'm all set right now.
We'll speak to the neighbors or about it, any interested parties, and then we'll circle around. So, because this is 2 different projects, and it's a fair amount on these plans.
Frank, can I just interject quickly?
Sure.
One is you having a butter with a hand up, and then also going back to being unclear about the walls. So no walls. We can't have walls in land subject to coastal storm flowage. That was upheld by DEP. So I agree with Penny that's
You can have a foundation, but you can't have retaining walls.
no, like think about Oceanside, the walls.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, and
Uh,
I'm gonna unmute Carrie, who has her hand up.
Delahunt? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
This is actually Stephen Delahunt. Kerry and I live on 35 Bayberry Road.
great, thank you.
We've been in the house for a year. And I'd say that the road is wet 11 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And I'd say in the entire winter, there was significant amount of ice on the road. So we're just it makes for a difficult situation when every day you're going through ice or huge puddles. And if it's going to
Do we have any other? Anybody else with
I don't see any other hands up.
an interest? So, Greg, you've obviously the concern starting with Doug, the sloping to the road. We know that we conditioned these other ones. I mean, some of the water in the road rose underwater. It probably did today. So some of it's flooding from the marsh, but now you have these lots developed and sloping towards there. You said that you had some pretty good perk rates, so it seems like they could take some infiltration. Just looking at lot 2, I mean, everything slopes right to Bayberry Lane.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Correct. That's the entire.
Is there any
lot.
way to create some sort of swale or collector or something in the corner of that property or?
There is the entire lot as it exists today, all slopes to Bayberry Lane. And so, where the flooding out here, you kind of think of flooding in two different aspects on a property like this. One is with respect to the ocean and the FEMA floodplain. And, if we're getting flooding on this property because of that, the road's underwater. There's already water on the neighbors' properties and across the street because that's the source of the water. We're not adding any fill that's going to displace that floodplain and push it onto abutting properties because the abutting properties are already underwater at that point. As you go south or to the bottom of this plan here, you're coming up in elevation. The water doesn't come up that high. It comes halfway up this lot in the 100-year storm event. But secondly would be, flooding that's created by this property. And certainly you're going to get runoff off of this property. I don't see it as being a high generator of runoff. It's under the thresholds of the stormwater bylaw. We're not increasing the runoff by more than 25% impervious. We're actually, again, 15% impervious. But are there things we could do to try to help it? There certainly are. We could try to hold back some of the roof in dry wells. We could try to grade in a depression or two, to certainly help the situation. Nothing's going to help with the ocean effect flooding on this property, but certainly, the stormwater that is generated by this property, we could help by doing a couple of those measures.
And all the other outbuildings on lot 2 are all going to remain. I'm assuming this garage and shed, the deck, the swimming pool, that are all associated now with the existing house, they're all going to remain.
So the immediate one right next to the language that says lot 2, that one is to be demolished. But the remainder,
garage,
the garage there, yes.
okay.
But the remainder of the sheds and the swimming pool at the southern end of the lot, the bottom there, that's all to remain, yes.
I see.
Yeah. So the retaining walls on this one here, lot 2, would be if you were coming up the driveway, there's a retaining wall along the right-hand side. That was to help make up the difference in grade from the driveway to over the septic system.
Yes.
It looks like it's about a 25-foot long retaining wall. It varies from about 6 inches high to about 2 feet high at its maximum. The second retaining wall at this site is off of the northeast corner of the lot, or is corner of the house, excuse me. And you'll see that it extends out at about a 45-degree angle, and that's so that the fill that's in the front yard doesn't wrap around on the side yard. So, you know, we certainly could eliminate that stone wall and pull some of the fill out of the front yard at that location as well. I don't see any problems doing that. Those are the two retaining walls on lot 2.
Okay. And what was Art's comments, Amy?
Art's comments were that he agreed with the accuracy of the resource areas as depicted, and that projects in land coastal storm flowage under the Scituate regs, you know, you had some leeway to, you know, to decide what was appropriate, whereas DEP does not have performance standards for land subject coastal storm flowage, like I pointed out. So, I mean, these are, you're taking a house that's existing and you're moving it, putting in 2 new septic systems, a new house on another lot, adding fill, walling it in. I mean, I don't know, they're fairly aggressive in my opinion, as far as density goes, and potential impacts with the fill and for flood control and storm damage prevention. So anything that they could do to minimize, avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts from these projects would be appreciated. So.
Okay. But again, Craig, there's no way to shift some of this runoff coming on that slope, especially is it lot 2? Lot 2.
Yeah. Cut down some of the fill on that front there.
Well, cut it down or create a swale, swale or run it into some sort of depressed area, just so at least the start of that rain. I mean, you think of the weather we had this year, all that water is just going to run down that slope and right into the driveway. It seemed to me like before it was pretty flat. I didn't remember it pitching to the road, maybe overall from way back where the pool is, it pitches in that direction, but it seemed like the lawn area as you came around Bayberry was fairly flat in that area. It was almost, it was pretty wet, if I remember.
It is, it's low lying.
So now you're going to build up this house and have at least what, 6 feet of fill?
Yeah.
Or slope going from the grade at the road up to the
front of the house. That's what's depicted on the plan here. I certainly could grade in some sort of depression or some sort of infiltration trench, you know, along the front lot line there to help. You know, if you're getting flood water across Bayberry, it's not gonna do much of anything.
I get that.
But, I think what may be better, what would cause water essentially to puddle at that front location in the existing condition is the water that's coming down the hill from the back of this lot by the swimming pool, coming down the hill and ultimately hitting that low-lying area by Bayberry. We could trap some of that water on the uphill side of the house potentially and hold it at that location as opposed to holding it in the front yard location. Making up the grade differences with foundations that have to be FEMA compliant, without necessitating the need for retaining walls, it results in a steep slope, unfortunately. The alternative would be to have either some more foundation showing. So I can look at those options and discuss them with my client and come back with a revised proposal on how to address some of the stormwater concerns.
Okay, thank you. Right, do we want to continue this or?
When?
Right.
How far out, Amy?
Or Greg, what do we need? What would you need to put something together?
What are the next meeting dates that you would have available? Schedule.
Like December 6th would be the meeting, or the 20th, Greg?
Of December or November?
December.
December?
Yeah.
Well,
Because our next meeting is the 27th, so it's pretty quick.
Gotcha.
And then there we have a meeting on the 15th of November, which is full.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
believe it or not, the 6th is right around the corner. It's very,
If that's the earliest, I would say December 6th then.
okay.
Okay. So I'll make a motion, Frank, to continue Lot 1 and Lot 2 Bayberry to December 6th.
Okay, you got a second, a motion from Penny. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
That was Doug. All in favor? Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
So, so for RDAs, we have 280 Gannett Road. On October 18th, 2021, during the 5:30 meeting in Town Hall, Situate Conservation will act on the request of Joseph Lanza for a determination of applicability Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activities related to building a shed and installing a fence in the front yard at location 280 Gannett Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website.
Frank, so this is an after the fact filing, and we do have the homeowner, Joe Lanza, on the line here.
I'm here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you
So
hear me?
do you want, yep, we can hear you. If you want to just give us a little lowdown on what we have, Mr. Lanza.
It's just a 8x12 shed store. I like lawnmower and snow blower, some other things like that that I really can't store in the basement. And then I thought of the fence that I want to do eventually, so I figured I'd mention it. And that's about it. It's pretty much parallel with the driveway. It's like 20 feet from my house. It's roughly 80 feet from wetlands or the marsh. So it's an 8x10 shed. I didn't think you needed a permit, as I found out that because of where it's located within 100 feet of the buffer zone, that I needed to ask permission. So that's how it became an after the fact.
Okay. Who wants to, Penny?
Hi, I see the new 8x12 shed. What's this shed that's out in the buffer zone?
That's just a small shed that's been there for before I was born, so it's kind of like a little house. There's some stuff in it, but it does get wet. Eventually, actually, that needs to be re-sided, so I don't mind mentioning that too, if that can be done on this permit. But I don't see myself getting to that in like probably next year. But it's basically just that little shed that's been sitting there for, I have no idea. Still standing, it's not in bad shape, but it needs to be re-sided. But it has a little door, so it's not like I can put a lawnmower in it. So.
But it doesn't belong out there. I'm sorry. It's in the 50-foot buffer. It really should be removed.
Yeah, it's been there for, as you know, Penny, it's been there for.
No,
probably
I
50,
understand
60,
that,
70
but
years.
that it really, that's maybe
I think
move it in for the 100.
I wouldn't want to move that. It's been there so long. It's probably gonna. It's not. I mean, what do you mean? I thought we were talking about the shed that's.
Well, we were, but
next to
then
the-
on the plan, I see that shed out there, and I'm just wondering what it's doing out there. I had noticed it driving by, to be honest with you.
I think it's been there.
Yeah, I'm sure
Looks like
it has
forever.
been there. I just was shocked when I saw it on the plan. Oh, okay. All right. These proposed plantings, are those?
That I have nothing to do with that. That was that plot plan is taken from the septic system when it was made from the last owner. So I
Okay.
had something to reference where the shed is. That's why I used that.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out too.
So
Okay,
the only thing that really that plot plan was used for is just the reference where the new shed is.
okay. All right, I'm all set, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you. Brendan?
Yeah, I'm all set. I'm good.
Andy?
I'm having trouble reading the copies of the plan that I've had. I guess I just.
Me too.
we've had a few of these where we have sheds that are storing any number of chemicals and things that we definitely don't want in the 50. So I guess I'm just trying to. I don't know. I feel like we need some confirmation that it's not in the 50, or maybe a better plan, just to try to figure
No,
out
it's
what's
not.
going on
It's
here.
definitely not in the 50. It's like 80. As you can see, the drawings that shows a 50 and then it shows 100. Do you guys have the pictures of the actual shed? Oh, sorry. Of the actual shed, and it's you can see where it kind of sits from the deck that's off the house.
Not to interrupt Andy's question, but according to this map, it's probably about 80, but depending upon how old this map is, it's probably not 80. It's probably less than that. So I'm not sure when these wetlands were flagged.
That map is probably 10 years. I mean, that's when the septic system was done. Let me see. I have,
2006.
yeah, so 15, 16 years.
So it would be hard to ascertain it without having the wetlands reflagged.
Yeah, I guess, yes.
I found an earlier map because I know the past owner built a deck off the back of the house, I think within the last 5 years. So there was something used for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because the deck's not even drawn on this one. So, I mean, I could find the set of plans where the deck is drawn on, and you can see that the buffer zone hasn't changed. And I mean, really, the shed is parallel with the deck right off the back of the house. And I think the pictures that I gave you kind of show that. Or definitely show if you have the real pictures. I'm not sure if you have them.
Yeah, I guess just to wrap up, I guess my comment is I think we want to hold this application to the standards that we hold others. And I feel like we don't have the information we usually need. But that's my comment.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm still good.
Okay. Doug?
You might have mentioned this. What is it? Just on cinder blocks? What's the foundation for this shed?
Yes, it's on cinder blocks with just 6x6 posts to come up, and it's about 2 feet off the ground, so it won't flood.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
No, Frank.
So, do we know how old this plan is? I'm having a hard time reading it on the application.
2006, it says.
2006 for the septic system?
Yes,
Yeah.
septic system upgrade. I have it right here, April 2nd, 2006.
And
You want to see?
no, it's
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I
Frank.
have a hard copy in front of me, Frank.
okay. And so I can see the buffer zones of the 100 and the 50.
Yeah.
It would be good to, we're taking a little bit of information here. It's up on cement blocks or something. I'm really not sure how much more information we'd need for.
I mean, there's sheds all along this street that's much closer. I mean, this is really the only place I could put it other than my front yard. I mean, it's really out of the way.
Well, I think it's out of the buffer zones. That the
I mean,
back
It's out of the 50.
It's definitely out of the 50, and I can't lie to you. It's inside of the 100, but I mean, it's part of the driveway. It's like, I mean, it's where cars park.
Do you get water at that location that high?
Not in a couple years. I mean, it when we get the tides with the when a nor'easter that stays for a couple days, it just doesn't come out of the Gulf River fast enough, and my whole yard gets flooded. I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
And that's the whole idea, is putting it up in the air and getting my lawnmower and all those things up off the ground, because I really don't have anywhere.
But I guess that's the question. I think Andy's maybe, without guessing what he's thinking, but you know, you put things in a shed like gasoline and tractors and oil and all that sort of stuff. Just want to be sure that that's secure. I mean, we're trying to protect the marsh in that area, so like
Frank,
elevate.
it's actually better than the basement, because the basement gets flooded before that shed does.
I'm sure.
I'll put it up in the air, I promise.
So the
it really does. It's the only spot in the yard other than the front yard that isn't going to get flooded. That's really why I built it.
Okay.
Frank, can I chime in?
Sure.
You skipped me, so
I did.
Am I right? Yeah.
Picked me twice.
I know, so rude. I think that I would agree with most of what's been said, and that, you know, a shed definitely makes sense. Would prefer to not have, you know, marsh water floating around your lawnmower. So if it's above ground, even better. But that being said, if we were to consider this as you came before you built the shed, we would still be asking these same questions about having a plan that accurately reflects what is there. So I don't necessarily I don't love the idea of the shed that's been there for a million years close to the buffer, but I would love to see a plan that accurately reflects what's going on site right now. before I feel like we can move on.
May I ask, what do you say, a plan of what's going on site? Like, do you need like a framing plan of this shed?
No,
or-
like, well, I am definitely not the person to look at a framing plan. But a site plan, so like what the site, where everything is reflecting the deck and the shed, and I think at one
So-
point the driveway was going to be decommissioned. So there's just a lot of changes on the site that are not on this plan. So it's confusing when you see proposed plantings and things like that, but that's not true. So I wouldn't
Yeah,
want
well,
that to be on your formal record.
Yeah. Like, in other words, I wouldn't be responsible for these plantings that aren't on this plan because I had nothing to do with it.
Theoretically, theoretically,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, the only way I'm gonna get another set of plans is to have an engineer and do all that for an 8x12 shed. I know I can find the plan within 5 years that shows the deck. And if I do that, would that satisfy?
Did that address the driveway as well?
No, I don't think it did, actually.
So is there, do we have multiple,
Well, I'm not.
do we have a file on this?
What do
Sorry,
I
do we have a file on this property?
There is, yes, there's a big property, as a matter of fact. But I don't think that there's past orders. You know, the house is, I'm not sure what year the house was built, but
It's been there a long, long time.
I
So, I
believe
mean,
it's 1910.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's areas of pre-existing disturbance on here for sure. Agree about not having, we don't have a plan at this point with accurate resource areas depicted. Perhaps at the Board of Health, they might have a scaled plan that could be referenced to get it up to date and get the resource areas on there. But I mean, that's going to be, with a wetland scientist. And I'm not saying that that's not appropriate, but that's certainly the way you would get it accurate. And I suspect that the shed, it could be close to the 50, but it's in an area that's like Joe said, it's kind of like part of the driveway. So it's already disturbed area. I mean, we get complaints about this site from time
But
to
you
time.
haven't, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you, sorry, but you haven't since the new owners, which is me. I know the
Okay,
past
well,
owners. It
Recap
was a
is that
lot.
we have had complaints about mowing of the salt marsh, which we definitely want to discourage for the future and probably establish some clear boundaries. But I mean, I'm glad that we finally got you on the agenda, Joe, because I think that the shed, was observed last spring or something like that. So it's taken a little bit of time to get you on. So I mean, I think that in the end of the day, a negative finding with a shed on concrete cinder blocks is probably going to be okay. Although I do agree with getting an accurate plan. So that was kind of.
Can I just ask one question? I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I have a feeling that the file, that it was within 5 years, that Mr. Lane had been into us about the porch. Now, wouldn't that be, that plan be appropriate for this to use? Because driving by there, which I do quite often, I think the shed's fine where it is. It's out of the 50, definitely out of the 50. And I think if we could pull that plan and it's within 5 years, would that be all right for him to use?
Yeah, my recollection is that plan, we can pull it and it's within like 3 years. It's like just right before the pandemic, you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
The deck was permitted, but I don't believe that point, I mean, that came in as an RDA2 and it came and for like 4 footings, you know what I mean? So it wasn't a highly scrutinized plan.
You know, this plan that
one-
we're looking at here, can you see the engineer's title block on that? Because this is computer generated, except for the handwritten stuff about the trees and stuff like that.
Solutions, Washington Street, Norwell.
Who is it?
It says Civil Design Solutions. 145 Washington Street, Norwell,
SDS?
Mass.
Well, that doesn't ring a bell, but I mean, if they're still around, they can just reprint this and take off those trees and you got your plan.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be.
Penny, who did we really don't need to spend a lot more time on this.
It was from Michael Lane.
Yeah, the tree pot have already been taken care of. I think you guys had another meeting about that because he didn't end up planting them, and you guys, I know there was some time agreement for what wasn't done and what he ended up doing, and I mean, he signed off on it, I think, finally, because he had to do that to sell the house and get the permit for the deck.
Yeah.
So I know there was some discussion about that. I remember talking to Mike. So Mike's a friend of mine, so that's how I know these things.
I'm go ahead. I'm inclined to take a motion for negative determination, but I think as a shed and being where it is, it's not like we're in a real gray area. We're right up against the wetland or something like that. But and I hate to see someone spend thousands of dollars
For a shit that.
to do a plan for something as simple as that. But when these applications come in that are just sort of pieced together, it doesn't, you know, we spent as much time talking about this as we had 2 houses on. Just because it's not clear.
I understand what you're saying, Frank. Like, we don't want people spending silly money, but if it had been done before the shed was put in, that would just be a cost that would be associated with doing this correctly to begin with.
Well,
if I might just say, I mean, I realize that I'm in the buffer zone, and I realize now that inside of 100, you have to ask permission to do anything that has to do with anything, pretty much. But normally, an 8x10 shed is not permitted, and you wouldn't have to. And I honestly, when I was building it, I kept it under the size of 120 square feet, thinking that I was staying within the rules. So I wasn't trying to get away with anything. I really thought a shed that I could build 8x12 is not normally permitted. That's all.
And you're hardly the first one to do that. So I think it would be good. At some point, you may want to get in and look at your folder, find your most recent delineation and work towards other pieces on the property, including the mowing and whatnot, so that we don't have ongoing issues, I guess would be the.
Yeah.
Frank, can that be rolled in as part of a negative determination, that we put in some conservation markers here or something instead? Because that would be something that I think would probably be amenable.
And also, how about that the shed in the wetland not be rebuilt in that location?
It's not going to be rebuilt. I'm just going to re-side it. I mean, the siding is awful. It has holes in it. I'm just going to re-side it. Not rebuilding it, not moving it.
I don't think you can improve it, though.
I don't know about that. I mean, I'll look it up, but you're just supposed to let it just dilapidate. I mean, my understanding is that I can re-side it and put a roof on it so it doesn't leak anymore. I mean, that's my house.
And I don't think we don't have jurisdiction over that, as long as he's not working in the ground. I honestly think we've discussed this enough tonight.
Yeah. So you want to go for a -3, Frank?
That's my,
Can I propose, like,
Go ahead.
if I don't know if I need an engineer in this, but can we at least get like a clean drawing with like a measurement off the corner of the house, like some measurement, so that we can
Yes.
know where it is?
I'd be willing to do that. I can find a way to do that.
all right, so what do we do with that? And I get it. So why don't we say if that negative would be conditioned on having the shed be properly located, as well as maybe Mr. Lanza, you could get in, like Amy suggested, Board of Health. Let's try to find like the cleanest plan that we can to have it on record here. And I hope that the takeaway from this is that, you got it, that you're in a sensitive area, and that work around that, you really need to give some thought to it before you continue.
Yes.
Okay. That helps.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for a -3.
That's Penny. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Brendan, all in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Sorry, I was on mute. Does that -3 with the conditions that we talked about?
yes.
Okay.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
okay. Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
On October 18th, 2021, during the 5:30 PM meeting in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the town of Scituate for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Protection Act on the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activity related to installing a timber floating dock and one timber pile at a location at Jericho Road Boat Ramp. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the website. There we go.
So I am unmuting Steve Moan.
Oh,
Penny?
Here he is. Hi, Steve.
Hello. How are you?
Yep.
Good, how are you tonight?
Good. Never really done one of these, so you're gonna have to help me through it. Do you want to know what the plan is? What we're talking about?
Got a pretty good sketch here, Steve. Maybe you could just enlighten us as to what you need to do. Looks like you're trying to just expand where the boats approach the.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. And it's gonna be, I'm trying to get 2 grants. One is for the float itself and piling, and another is for a pump out station, so that we'd have a second pump out station in the harbor, which would allow boats to pump out at 2 different locations, so that if one station went down, we'd still have another station operational, so people don't dump their waste into the harbor. I think it's a pretty good idea.
me too.
So I've been dealing with 3 different state agencies. Doug Cameron, he's on vacation this week, but he is with Fishing and Boating Access. He's in charge of all the state boat ramps. So I presented it to him. He thought it was a good idea, but he didn't think there was enough room to have the station, which takes up a little bit of space, and then the additional, an additional boat to pump out it while other people are trying to access the ramp itself. So he asked if we could potentially add a second float and a piling, which these floats get removed in the wintertime, and then they're put back in the springtime. Then the second agency was through the Department of Fisheries, the State Department of Marine Fisheries, and they had a grant, what they call a small grant, which would cover most of the cost of the float and the pile. My department would pick up the remainder, which none of that comes from any town taxes or anything. It all comes out of my waterways enterprise from the fees that I derive. And then the third is through CVA, the Clean Vessel Act. And that's another agency that we get grants for the pump out stations and pump out boat that we operate. So I think it's really needed. Most big harbors have more than 2 or 3 pump out stations. We have 1 station, and the town has 1 boat. There is another boat that operates. I don't know what their schedule is or how often they operate, but we do operate our pump out boat most of the summer during the days, as staffing was a little bit difficult this year, as I'm sure you can understand. So that's where I stand, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. Doug Cameron has filed with Mass DEP for a what do they call it, a minor modification. He's filed a self-verification with the Army Corps of Engineers, and then he filed with conservation for Does anybody have any
Okay,
questions?
does this, Amy, when it's a minor piece like this, does this go back to like chapter 91, or how does that?
Yeah, so that's what Doug Cameron is yes, getting permission from them as a minor modification
Through chapter 91,
through 91, yes.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then I would assume there'd be a lot more if this is going to be a pump station than this. This is kind of like a first phase or something.
This is pretty much it. The pump out station, it's just some piping, and it's going to run across the parking lot and I've had Will from sewer, and so it runs up and then out, and then it runs across the parking lot into the sewer lines at Jericho. You know, there's a manhole that it's going to go into. And I had Mr. Costello, is that right? Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
He came down and, looked at the site, and he spoke with the pump companies that make the pump out station pumps.
So
right now, we're just
and I
looking to
keep-
get
I
the
hate to-
additional float and pile.
I know other members are going to have questions, but so when you're done with this, you're going to have some sort of pump out piece there. It's going to go up the walkway, and then it's going to be a trench across the parking lot. Steve,
Yeah, eventually, yeah. If we get the second grant, yes.
Okay, but that would be more involved, I guess, is
Yeah.
my point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so, yeah.
Yes.
Again, I'm not an engineer, I don't know.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've hogged all the space. Doug, you wanna?
I think you covered it pretty well. It's right now, it's the float.
Pretty much, it's the float and the piling.
And the piling, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have any questions on that.
Penny?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Jen?
I'm good if Doug is good.
Okay, there we go. Andy
Okay.
and Brendan,
I'm okay as well.
anybody in the audience? Yippee-do.
No, I see nobody in the audience. And
Okay.
Can I go for a -3 then?
yes,
Yes,
I'll
Today?
second that.
thanks. All in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Ken?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. I was a little nervous, but
You did great, Steve. Thanks.
Well, you got to listen to everybody else, so.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize you were at the end of the meeting.
No
All
worries
right.
about it. You guys have a great night and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, what else do we have to pull things together here? Jen Smith's ready to put her stuff away, so let's get going.
Okay, let's see. I make a motion, we accept the minutes for September 20th and October 4th as written.
That
I'll
was a
second that.
motion. Brendan's got that. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you, Penny.
Okay, I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition as written for 8 Gilson Road and Off Bay Road.
28 Gilson, correct?
Yes, 28 Gilson.
Okay, I got a motion from Penny. We have a second.
I'll second that too.
Nice.
Thank
All
you.
in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Rolling.
Okay, that's it for me.
Amy?
Well, we were gonna talk about liaisons very quickly. We
Oh,
could
yeah.
also talk about, I mean, we could talk about some enforcement, but I don't really know if I have the energy to talk about enforcement right now. We
It's
could
after 8
circle
o'clock. I'm
back.
pretty good.
Yeah, circle back around on penalties.
Jen just cracked a can and it says it's salsa water, but I don't think it is. So.
Red Sox.
don't drink.
All right, so let's go to liaisons quickly.
Yeah. So I've been doing the coastal advisory for a number of years, and to be quite honest with it, with everything else going on, I would love it if someone else was willing to do that. And there's a lot of moving pieces right now. We've got a new coastal resource person, correct, Amy?
Well, it's
Or it's moving forward.
supposedly, yeah, but or not supposedly. I've heard that the person's been hired, but we've
Yeah,
not.
all right, well, but it's gonna be a
Weeks
brand new
out,
person.
months
It's
out,
gonna be a
some-
new person. It's not, so there's
At
some
some point.
changes in this, and I think it's an important piece, and it's nice to have the commission represented there. And it's certainly a very important part of the town of Scituate. And I think you really do learn some interesting pieces. And I'd probably still attend a few meetings, especially when they have, coastal experts talking about certain issues, but
Focus on
there's some-
climate change and things like that, foreshore
Mhm.
protection, exciting stuff.
So I don't know if somebody's, and I don't know what the frequency of their meetings are, if it's monthly or even that often,
They
to be
don't
honest.
meet monthly. They have not been meeting monthly.
Okay,
But maybe with a new coastal person.
so Richard did this for a number of years, and then I picked up from him.
We were thinking maybe Brendan might be interested.
Who said that?
Amy did.
Brendan is, I've got a few things going on, and I think I inadvertently picked up a new thing outside of this realm here in the West End. So I am not sure that I can commit much time. Like, what are we talking about? Once a month?
I'm not sure we really know yet. But you know what? We don't have to decide this tonight. You guys can
Right.
mull it
I can
over.
try to get more information, but so I think at this point, we'll just put in to the people that you're no longer the liaison, Frank, so you are at the circle. And somebody can think about it and we'll see how it unfolds. But I agree with Frank. It is important to follow what they're doing.
Could we do something like, so it doesn't feel like you're signing up for the rest of your life? Like, a 6-month commitment to it, and then we like rotate it around or something like that, because
Oh, great idea, Jen.
because that could be less scary. I mean, speaking for myself, because like
One of the topics is beach nourishment at Minot Beach.
I would do it for 6 months, but after that, I would want somebody else to. So Brendan, can you solve everything else that's going on in your life for 6 months from now?
It was 6 months, but it brings me about April. Yeah, well,
Perfect.
I'll have dropped some of my coaching things. Yeah, by then.
Brendan has
With the age of your
kids.
kids, I wouldn't think that 6 months that'll be gone before you even look up. Okay, well, that's a great solution to start with, Jen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jen.
Motion to adjourn.
And
No,
just
wait a minute.
one of the scouts with a life badge just cleaned up the trail between the town forest and Clap Road. And we got another one ready to do some boardwalk pieces. So we're moving along.
What's happening with the signage, Frank?
We're working with 2 other scouts to figure out their
Okay,
availability and time.
okay, very
All right?
good. Yep,
That's
I'm available.
we're
I
gonna
can
get you a
hold
step ladder.
signs.
You're gonna get a step ladder, Penny, and accordion
I've got
string.
a ladder. I can bring my own ladder.
Who's gonna make that motion that we've been waiting
Okay, I
for?
make a motion to adjourn.
Who's got a second on that?
I'll second that.
There you go.
Can we
Oh,
talk
what?
about at the next meeting the Driftway Park stuff? Just because
Absolutely.
Christmas is creeping up.
Oh,
Geez,
boy.
I said I would do that. So Jen, do you want to send that out to everybody else? Your email?
Yeah, if it's okay to send it out, I'm happy to do that.
Absolutely. So it's just it's dealing with some of the Christmas ornaments, things like that happen. Jen's given some great thought to that, and I really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind send that
Yep,
out.
absolutely.
Get some feedback. Sorry, I forgot.
No worries.
Just a reminder, our next meeting is on Wednesday, October 27th, like it says on the agenda here.
And town meetings next Tuesday.
And town meeting's Tuesday.
How
Yeah,
much going on there? Okay. Now we did have a motion to adjourn, but we didn't vote it. So it was Penny, Brendan. So Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks so much. Everybody have a
Good
good night.
night.